Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the next of the series in Masterclass by BML Munjal University. I am Professor Davinder Singh. I work in School of Management and I am also Assistant Dean in the school looking after external engagement. We are in the midst of a situation which none of us in the current generation has ever witnessed, and hopefully we should never witness it again. However, this situation is very much around us. We are living through it. We are managing. And I must say, some of us are doing it. At least in this country, we seem to be doing better than many other places. And in our sector of education, we are doing well. We started this series of masterclass series of basically looking at when tomorrow comes, because we are very optimistic that as situation improves over the period of time, we would be moving into more sure environment, and we should be ready to take advantage of that environment. So we've been inviting people from various facets of life, from different parts of this community, of the society, to come and share their views, how they have managed this change, how they have handled this thing. So today in our session, we have two gentlemen of high repute. I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce them. First, I'd like to introduce Mr. Akhil Bansal, who is the Deputy CEO for KPMG in India. He spent 22 decades with the firm, 20 years that he spent with the firm, and he has actually served in several leadership roles. He's headed country. He's been a country head of assurance. He's also been a chief operations officer. He takes an active interest in corporate citizenship initiatives. Apart from growing KPMG over the last many years, he also devotes his time and resources across several of the firm's child education and environment protection programs in the country. He's a member of Board of Advisor for Literacy India, a member of United Way of Delhi, a trustee member of various other NGOs. Now, currently, he is working on a project which aims to uplift 108 villages in Mathura district in Uttar Pradesh. We are very happy to have Mr. Akhil Bansal. Welcome to this masterclass series. Other panelist with us is a person who is multi-talented, Mr. Rajiv Luthra. Mr. Luthra is founder and managing partner of Luthra and Luthra Law Firms, which is now called LNN Partners Law Firm. One of the largest law firms in India. He has over 25 years of experience in advising clients on a vast range of complex commercial transactions, which include infrastructure projects in countries not only in India, but also in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, China, Nepal, and Nigeria. He's handled various assignments of disinvestment, privatization, and restructuring in his career. He also worked on some of the largest mergers in Indian corporate history. He's also handled a lot of other assignments which involved parties from multinational organizations. He's been appointed by the Government of India on the drafting of several rules and regulations. He has been ranked amongst the leading individuals in banking and finance by the Asia Pacific Legal 500. He's also featured in Leaders Profile India Project Finance of the Chambers Global, the world's leading lawyers, a Chambers and Partners publication. Further to his credit, a number of publications in various national and international professional journals and magazines have come. Mr. Luthra, welcome to this series. Before we begin the discussion with our panelists, a few housekeeping points I'd like to share with all our attendees. We would be spending about 30 to 40 minutes asking our panelists to share their views on various things. And while this thing is going on, we would request you to keep your mics and your mics on the mute and your cameras also on these level. If you have any questions or comments, kindly use the chat window to put the comments there. We would be accessing them. And towards the second half of this discussion, we would be happy to share your questions and comments with the panelists and get their viewpoint. In case you would like to ask a question specific to a panelist, kindly do write their name when you are writing your question in the window. Okay. Thank you so much. Kindly observe these rules to help us move this session smoothly. So let me begin by asking both the gentlemen one by one. Maybe I'll start with Mr. Akhil Bansal. We are actually 6 weeks into the lockdown. So it was 6 weeks ago when the lockdown 1.0 was announced. And of course, we are now moving out to some extent, some limited lifting of lockdown restrictions have happened. So when this was announced, what were your initial thoughts, both as Akhil Bansal as a person and Akhil Bansal as a senior executive of KPMG? What were your initial thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Professor Singh. A very valid question. Frankly, modesty apart, we were expecting a lockdown to happen. As an organization of 20,000 people in India, when virus started hitting in China and went out to Europe, we started taking care of our offices and our people. We actually started many safety norms even before lockdown happened, which kind of included sanitizing the office, checking temperature of people who were coming in, uh, even self quarantine for people who were coming from abroad. Many of these measures we had started as early as is in mid February or early February. Uh, Lockdown happened around 23rd of March. Actually, we started work from home from 15th of March. Actually, we sent our people back home and we started to work on 15th of March. And that week, in a way, at the hindsight, turned out to be a boon for us because in that week we were able to test all our systems. We were able to deliver people's workstation and computers to their home, and this kind of became a testing period. Is a period for where we could conduct all equipments are working and all. So we were not surprised because what we were watching the world as how it is affecting how it affected China, then it went out to Europe. And, Europe not taking enough action in the beginning was suffering. And therefore, there was a bit of an expectation that restrictions would be required and social distancing norm will come in, and therefore, to prepare yourself was the idea, even without regulatory lockdown, which was announced. It even then, the magnitude of the lockdown and stringency with which it has been implemented in India is actually unique in many ways vis-a-vis rest of the world. And I'm a full supporter of this lockdown because I personally and strongly believe that if this lockdown was not done with such an stringency in India, with a population of 135 crore people, if we would not have been able to restrict it to only about 50,000 cases as we are today, 6 weeks, 7 weeks down the road. And if this 50,000 cases were there 6 week back or 8 week back, India healthcare infrastructure could not have taken it, and we would have collapsed. Today we have far better infrastructure, both in terms of number of beds for COVID patients or ventilator being almost 2 lakh. So point is that we are, I'm a supporter of lockdown. But coming back to my original point, the stringency of the lockdown did give us a bit of a surprise. But within first week of lockdown, where there was anxiety, we were not sure how to handle it. There are a number of things, initiative which we have taken as an organization, and which includes not only constant communication with people using analytics, and God has been kind, fingers crossed, not even 1 out of 20,000 KPMG employees has been affected so far.
That's great news. That's great.
Work has been going on, and we are now moving on to the phase when lockdown is being open. How do we get back to the office, which probably I'll get to.
Yeah, we'll come to that a little while. Let me just ask Rajiv, when he first heard about it, what was his reaction? At about 7 o'clock in the night, he heard about this. lockdown. So what was your reaction, Rajiv, at that point in time?
Well, thank you. Good evening, all. As far as I'm concerned, what Akhil was talking about, we were also very fortunate. We started roughly about 8 days before the Prime Minister spoke first on the Tali story on Sunday, and then the final lockdown. So we also were able to, though we don't have resources like KPMG, etc., but we also had that good 7-8 weeks of testing our VPNs and our systems. And we were actually working from home and had locked down our offices roughly about 7 days before Prime Minister Modi spoke about the lockdown. So we had anticipated this maybe 15-20 days to that in terms of giving people vitamin C chewable tablets in the firm, and all the sanitizers, they were put on the door well before. And that was something that we were doing on a natural basis. So what Akhil said, I'm happy to say that even a small baby firm like ours compared to his did a lot of that. And it was very well received by our people, and they felt that they were being cared for. That was a good positive which came out of it. Thereafter, of course, the typical thing is, let's cut people, let's cut costs. Oh, this is going to shut down. We are going to go. And when the announcement actually came, there was a big problem thinking what will happen. Our clients won't be able to pay us. We won't be able to bill, etc., etc., etc. And, we are the unfortunate humans who sell their time and pride ourselves in doing that. So selling time in a lockdown is a bit of a challenge. But we were able to get around that, and we were able to do a lot of things. Because one of the reasons I feel that when something like this crazy happens, we need to look at it from a kind of a transformation which is constant. I mean, change, this is a change, right? And a big change. And change for me is a transformation. We are changing every nanosecond. We are getting either a few cells or getting rid of a few cells. The technology is changing. Everything is changing all the time. So for me, it was an opportunity to see what all can we do. Now we have this problem. And of course, the obvious ones were cash is king, blah, blah, blah. For me, survival became progress. That was the first mantra I put on the table. Second was, let's look at the top line. Forget the bottom line. Forget sacking people. Forget reducing salaries. Let's look at the top line. And all of us, we are roughly good 600 warm bodies in the firm. Let's look at the way we can actually, each one of us thought seed and build the top line first. Then we'll talk about the bottom, because that's the easiest.
So Akhil, Rajiv spoke about few hundred people working for him. You spoke about few 10,000 working in KPMG. He spoke about certain things about, saying, look at survival, look at top line. What were your thoughts? Were you also looking at same thing? Were you looking at adaptation, or were you looking at transformation?
So very interesting to know what Rajiv said, because while last 3-4 weeks, I can tell you the kind of time the leadership of KPMG is spent in visualizing what the scenario would look like and how do we prepare ourselves for this year and time forward. But ironically, we have gone on the reverse side. We don't know what the top line will be, so let's control what is in our control is the cost.
Okay.
Our revenue, although we are in a very similar industry, we both are professional service providers. We both are people-driven organization. People are the only assets we have. But we have looked at it slightly differently as to how do we, let not this good crisis go waste. How can we make ourselves a leaner and mean organization and have more resilience in the system? And therefore, it's still work in progress, but we have looked at even far more technological adoption. I mean, it's been happening for us, being in a consulting business has been happening, always been happening, but even how do we go even 2 steps further and make it an organization where we are able to take care of people. We have not, so far, we have not even looked at people severance or people cost reduction. We have not looked at it. We are trying to do the business differently and therefore survive everybody in the system.
Right. A lot of times, whether it's a large organization or small organization, you always do what is known as future planning or scenario building. And sometimes you even say, what worst can happen to you? Did any point in past, Rajiv, did you kind of ever visualize and create a scenario like today, where nothing will work and you just will be at home and the world economy would be in doldrums? Would something like as bad as what we are today, was it ever visualized in past or planned for?
I'll tell you, and I want to be straight up front. Typically, if this was in court, I would say, of course, Lordship, I thought about it, but I'm not in court, so I can tell you, I never imagined something like this. Never, ever. Even my wildest dreams never thought we could get to this situation. So as far as we were concerned, it was something that we got ready with. We've had shocks in the past. We've had much more minor ones. We do a lot of work in South Asia. When SARS happened, when the tsunami happened, a lot of these things, we had tasted it. But this is better than any good quality, in your case, Professor Davinder Singh, a good quality Amritsar restaurant. Nothing like this we've tasted.
Right. Anything at your end, at KPMG, did anything like this ever was visualized?
So, at the hindsight, people are referring to, it was said in 2005 by Bush, and it was said by so-and-so astrologer in so-and-so book. But frankly, no organization in the world was prepared for a pandemic like this. The only thing I can compare to in terms of preparation, not in terms of the nature of this crisis, is many organizations after 9/11 attack or a Taj incidents in Mumbai have been preparing themselves for a terrorism kind of a situation or post tsunami or many earthquake in those kind of a scenario. So there are several things which organizations have done over a period of time, whether it is data backup, whether it is BCP manual, if earthquake happens, how the people will be moved out, moved in. So number of things which were prepared for different purposes have been helpful in this scenario also. But I don't think anybody expected this pandemic to happen like this.
So now during this last 6 weeks, did you kind of realize or see somebody or something which was truly heartwarming for you? Something which at a personal level touched you and said, okay, oh, wow, this I had never seen or would have imagined would have happened, or is available with somebody within the organization or with people?
That's for me or Akhil? Sorry.
Let me just ask Akhil, then I'll come to you as well. I think
sure.
Both of you would have stories or
no, I just didn't know who you're looking at.
Okay, and that's the problem of being online. I could be looking at the world.
I know, I'm being sarcastic.
Sorry. Yeah, please. Okay.
Thank you for your permission, Rajiv. There are number of incidences that has taken place. If I look at within the organization, how our admin and technology team have worked together to make sure that every of the 20,000 people in KPMG are safe, are brought back home. Of course, the person who is affected will remember even more. Before the last flight landed in the country, we made sure all our people who were outside India were brought back to India. Expat who were working in India were sent back to their base locations. Anybody, employees who had personal issues also, some of those things were sorted out. We really celebrate the way admin and technology team worked on this. On a personal basis, not personal, but when I look at the larger society, I think, number of organizations which have come together to feed people who are daily wage earners, who are migrant laborers. I'm sadly, so many incidences have happened where people at the bottom of the pyramid
Your
has
voice
to.
is
Can you hear me better? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Akhil.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, but I have seen, which I have never seen before in life. At least I can count 150 organizations whom I have now personally seen in last 45 days, who have delivered 2,000 lunches or dinners per day, or have delivered 1 month ration to thousands of families. That's really touching. I mean, people have created new organization to do that. That is like, a crisis was needed to unite people together. That kind of a feeling I got looking at how people actually took care of others.
Rajiv, some heartwarming stories from your side.
Yeah, so while Akhil was talking, I was just thinking in my mind, there were so many, which one should I talk about, the one or two? So one very quickly, I live in an area called Shanti Niketan, which is in South Delhi. And I've lived here in this, between Anand Niketan and Shanti Niketan for the last 40 odd years. And there used to be a little vegetable market near our place. And that's the one I used to go when I was a youngster, called Shastri Bazaar. And this is a, pure vegetable market. The people sell vegetables in the morning and eat in the evening and live there as well. I'd imagine there were about 1,100 people odd living there. 6 people were found COVID positive. And that's about, say, 800 yards from my house, 800 meters from my house. When I discovered that, and since I know the area well, I spoke to our resident welfare, and I can't blame the government. They were all over the place. They didn't know how to feed the guys. They had no idea. These are early days. They had no idea of red zone, blue zone, orange zone, all of that stuff. So I just told our president of our welfare association, I said, boss, jab to government aayegi, because I did call up somebody in the Delhi government. I said, look, this is a issue. We need to try and fix this. These guys have been taken to hospital. What about the rest of the people? And they said, unko bolo ki falani jagah pe aake ration hai, itne lakh log ka roz. Main kaha, how do they go? They've made a containment zone. How do they go out there and get the food? So I spoke to our president and I said, yaar, hum log hi paise karte karte. And that built my faith in humanity. In 48 hours, we had collected lakhs of rupees. Just this one colony. And within,
Amazing.
I think, it was the next year or the day after, there were vegetables, there was fruit, and we all wore our masks and all kinds of other stuff and went about 100 yards outside the containment area. And the guy would be tested, he'd come out. And 1 or 2 of our people, one of them was a doctor, actually went in. And you should have seen the pictures he took. Guys, the kids hadn't eaten for 2 days. And there were 7,000 people in there.
That's amazing.
Hundreds. And the way that's what I felt that, and these were people known to us, and didn't want any names, nothing. We had the local MP of our area called Meenakshi Lekhi. I called her up. She was here with she all dolled up with all her the P and the rest of it, and she went intensely and went to the people, and it was a very, very interesting thing. The second quick one is my brother lives opposite. I live across the road.
Okay.
We have 4 or 5 servers on his side. We have 4 or 5 on our side. So we quarantined the servants. So luckily we have help at home. One of them who does a work, a young lady, come, lives with her husband side place. So told her, you can come in. She came in after those 14-day quarantine. So my wife gave her the full. You know what the girl said? She says, "Ji, मैंने तो पूरे महीने काम नहीं किया." And her husband is a daily wager. So my wife said, "नहीं, आप कोई बात नहीं." कहती नहीं, मुझे तो बहुत बोर हो गई थी वहाँ. तो टीवी पर मैं बहुत वापस आऊँ तो आपने मुझे वापस रख लिया है. तनख्वाह से बहुत ज्यादा है.
You know, clearly,
it is amazing. Yeah, I wish, Akhil, we could motivate our people like this. We'd be billionaires.
No, I think one thing when
yes, right, Rajiv, God has been kind to us, and if we are able to take care of the full, similar what is all maids, guards, and drivers paid for, because work, no work. This is unusual. This is unprecedented. You can't compare the situation to anything else, at least in our lifetime. So it has to be dealt with in that manner. Kudos to you.
Clearly, I mean,
not to me, to the people at large. They did the whole thing. I just don't see the bits of it. It was
very clearly, people of the economic strata have brought out inner values which we seem kind of got submerged in daily routine or else, come out, and it's been very heartening. Whether it is example that Rajiv told about the maid who came after a month, or about people held out. Now, let's look a little forward. Let's do a future grazing, because now we have managed that initial few weeks of thing. We've kind of staged ourselves. Need to looking forward to what next. Of course, it's got in terms of opening. So in that area, let me just ask Raj, how do you see? What do you see in future? What are the things that you see will continue to still, even which were there before COVID? It will still be. Maybe it might be now probably accelerated or low, but still will exist. Once the things we are out of this COVID situation. So how do you see the future things still remaining similar to what it was in the past?
Well, I'll answer that in a slightly different way. See, what it has done, actually massive positive in my view. It has pushed the dinosaurs of this world getting rid of technology. Now, once understand the benefit of this technology, I mean, what sense does it that me and two of the youngsters have to go to an advocate's office and brief him, burn fuel all the way, spend time and come back? I can very well do now I won't name the video conferencing. Similarly, judges, we all get charged up at 10:15. We reach court ready to roll, and everybody court because things, well, that's the way the system works. Today, as we get used to it, and as the system, we can have an efficient system going. Look at the under trials. We have to bring them from Tihar to Patiala House in the city of Delhi. Now you don't need to. You can do it for conferencing. Look at fuel you're seeing, the pollution, the hassle, the way the cops, all that. Now that the various that this is on a positive side. See, I'm a very big optimist. Look at how we can really change the way things happen with the costs. I'm sure KPMG is of it. Why the hell do we need such huge areas of office space? We have some 80,000 square foot of office space just in the city of Delhi, and a slightly much smaller place in Mumbai, Hyderabad, Bangalore. Why do I need all of that? I mean, I was joking with my partners. I said, we should have my chamber, being the dictator that I am, and we should have a few other chambers, and maybe a nice 3-star Michelin restaurant, and maybe some conference rooms. That should be our office. And your clients would love to come and eat 3-star Michelin food, etc., etc. I mean, that was on a lighter note, but so much can change. So much of your costs can go away, and so much efficiency. I save about roughly. I live not far from my My office is in Barakamba Road. On a bad day, it takes me about 40 minutes one way. On a good day, about 10, 15 minutes. Not 10, 15, 20 minutes. I save on a bad day more than an hour and a half. That's time not commuting. I can do my billing. I do all kinds of other things. So can our people.
Yeah.
So that's the way I see the future is going to change quite a lot. I don't see us wearing masks for the rest of our life. I don't see this. Firstly, I don't like the word social distancing. It should be physical distancing. In fact, Zoom, sorry, again, I shouldn't have. But anyway, Zoom has said it. Zoom, etc., have brought us much closer socially than we ever were. I mean,
Akhil.
It's been very rare. Once a year, I have a firm's annual where I meet everybody in the firm. Now I can do that every day.
So, Akhil, seems to be something which all of us have adopted. In fact, with a lot of enthusiasm, where we might have been a little reluctant. Now, how do you see? I mean, do you see this technology, the adoption of technology, equally strong once the social distances are no longer required and people can interact? See this balance coming in, and also very specifically, how would you see the offices and business rate? Let's say 18 to 20 months from now.
So I think Rajiv spoke very interestingly on how the dinosaurs will have to change, and I think that would certainly be a big change as far as technology is concerned. And if I compare this situation to what happened after World War II, the number of technological advancement made was amazing, which has probably not happened, 2 millennials before that. It started happening after the war. The COVID will have maybe far bigger impact. As I said, despite we being technologically very organization, and we change technology more often than any other industry. We ourselves were, if you were to ask this question 2 months back, Akhil, would you put 20,000 people working from home at the same time? I would say, no, I won't risk it because, our system may not be able to take such a load. But having done that under force for 45 years and zero failure, tomorrow we are thinking our horizon has become bigger. And as we speak, we are also looking at what is two things. Why do people need to come to work every day? And then accordingly, what is our office requirement? And we, even before we go back to office post-lockdown, which we are not in a hurry to go back because we have actually, as firm, decided that we will review the situation on between 20 till 24th. Anyway, we're working from. And even when we start working back to all, we'll be doing in such a way that probably for next 1-2 months, we will be working very, very differently. Technology adoption, as far as we are concerned, firms like organizations like us, which are anyway technology driven, will go probably 2 notches up. But dinosaurs will have to completely change. There is no doubt about that. And some of these changes which are happening now are irreversible. Irrespective of what happens, these will become the new norm for the industry to operate.
Rajiv, when I one of these days I had read in about China that post the lifting of lockdown, a lot of couples filed for divorce. Okay, the number of people who are filing for divorce really went up. I'm not trying to looking from a social perspective, but I'm trying to see, when one moves from a situation like this where you're very, very careful, you want to hug each other, you want to kind of take care of others. But once you're out of the situation, and the things are becoming better, do you think the desire to take on fights and litigations, would that remain same or would it go up or go down? What is your feel on that?
So I don't let out a secret because Davinder is a client. We discussed divorce on a different matter in our earlier discussion. So I won't talk about that. Now, I don't know. So I
Pro bono client. I'm a pro bono client.
Only then you
Please
become a
make me
client.
lose. Please make me lose.
Okay, now you're finished. This is recorded. So, no. On a serious note, I read about these divorces in China. Incidentally, Davinder, when you talked about me having advised projects in China, we actually advised a barge-mounted power project in Wuhan, in Hubei province. And a lot of our people have actually been there, and I've been scaring them. Anybody who misbehaves has to go and revisit that project. So now we have a lot of... Now, coming back to your question, I don't know what is the reason for those divorces. Whether it's non-hugs or hugs, I don't know. I've also read that. But nobody's really articulated hua kya hai. Is it too much of togetherness? Is it too much of each other? What issue? What is the real thing? So I need to just understand that a bit better. Now, coming to your specific question, will we be hungry, or will the system be hungry to continue litigation? Without a doubt, and I want to do wishful thinking, we live off litigation. And that is something that will happen as we go forward, but it will become much more efficient in my view. With the use of technology, the cost will come down and all of that, and there will be different dynamics that will work, but litigation certainly is not coming down. I mean, if KPMG's landlords hear what KPMG is thinking, they won't be able to, eat their meal properly, because force majeure, and huge commercial spaces, and there are a bunch of private equity funds which have, put billions of dollars, and that all becomes useless. Where do we go? See, the residential market, just coming to real estate for a minute, residential market was, quite badly skewed. The commercial markets was the one growing. Now, if that falls away, we have a serious issue on our hands on real estate. Similarly, the malls. So anyway, going away with the Amazons and the Flipkarts of this world, and there was only more air conditioning and etc. The malls will be entertainment. So, this needs lots of different levels will move different. It's a Titanic in many, many ways.
Right. Akhil,
Sorry, if I can add to that, Professor saying it's not technology was one part of it, as I said, and Rajiv added that industries like real estate will badly be impacted, not only in the short term but in the long run, or tourism or the aviation industry. The psychological fear of traveling or staying in a hotel is not going to go away in a short span of time. But having said that, there would be far-reaching changes in the world, whether it's geopolitical. What started happening between US and China. Now look at it, how many countries are looking at China with a different lens altogether. I mean, countries are, the government of the countries are announcing that they will assist companies who want to move of China. Everybody, if it left to the nation and the government, they will try to localize everything. But if it is left to the free market, there would be opportunities like more offshoring and technology that would certainly come to India. But that's on one side. Oil prices on the other side. While it's dipped to such a low oil prices in the world that many countries' economies dependent on these oil prices will have tough time for short to medium term, and if the oil prices are far lower than the point at which they can survive. Even organizations like WHO and WTO, I mean, never before in my life I looked at WHO to say which side is WHO is. It's the first time a thought has crossed my mind that WHO also has a side. And an organization like these will be able to handle a world crisis or just another organization in the world. So there would be a lot of changes that will take place post this besides financial crisis in the industry and the technological advance that will happen?
Rajiv, would you want to take on further from what Akhil said on geopolitical, and he mentioned about WHO and institutions like these, which have been looked as global, non-partisan, and the change that we anyway were seeing before the COVID situation. Various countries having a certain shift in their viewpoint and how they stand in the world. Would you want to kind of pick it up, because you've had this
Sure.
interesting experience in the past of handling cross-border negotiations and deals?
So let's go to what the world order was 50s, 60, 40 years ago. It was all about the World Trade Organization, the world becoming one. Now, see, in the last 5-7 years, the World Trade Organization barely exists. Every country hunkering down and protecting their own, their anti-dumping duties have jumped up. All kinds of barriers have been put off trade, whether it's China, whether it's America, whether it's Europe, whether it's England now with Brexit happening. All of this was the trend going. Now, a lot of these, the relevance of a lot of these United Nations type organizations or the WHOs, while I personally think WHO does a great job. And on a lighter vein, somebody said, who did the lockdown? And I said, yes, you're right. WHO. So those parameters are going to change. Those stories are going to change without a doubt. And that was said at least, I would say, 10 years ago, if not less. So hunking down is happening. I mean, China is selling 1 rupee AA battery cells in India. We can never make it at that price. So that dumping, all of that, so countries have realized. Similarly, pharmaceuticals. Most of the pharmaceutical important ingredients come from China.
Right.
Europe hardly has any the ingredients. America has hardly any. So now all that is going to change. I serve on the board of a large multinational pharmaceutical company and I chair it. And the whole story is changing very rapidly. You can't even imagine. It's on real time that how they're going to build the factories there. So there's a huge, massive change the way I see it.
So would this lead to a greater confidence in bringing these global institutions back into a stronger position, or would we please say, okay, they are now, as Akhil said, dinosaurs, and either they change or they perish? Where do you think they would be?
See, I look at it from a slightly different point. So for a lot of this, there's robotics, there's all of that. But you still need people, hopefully, for whatever reasons, you still need people. India has that huge advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And not only are they reasonably educated, not only do we have good land, what we don't have is good infrastructure. What we don't have is long-term financing. If some of these things are put together, India can be easily the Sone ki chiya that we were.
Yeah, but
with
what do you think,
27.3% of the world GDP.
Right. So I'd like to hear from Akhil. And I mean, this thing is being talked of in media, and a lot of us are being very hopeful that India would attract the investment or the money, might move out of China. But is it all that simple, or do we really need to do some big changes at our end to really be able to attract all this money or investments?
So there is an answer I can give from my heart, and which says that India will gain big time from this post-COVID scenario. But when I apply my mind on this as well, then I need to take a step back. One thing is very clear. At this moment, there is a lot of distrust on China, whether it is relating to share information on the virus or the way economically China is trying to take advantage of the position. There is a lot of distrust on everybody, including every organization, business organization, government, is trying to not be so centered have been in last decade or so. And therefore, everybody is looking for an alternative. The question is, who's that alternate? And my answer or my gut feel is that it's not going to be one center, one another center outside China. It's gonna be spread. Only what's seeing is that countries like Thailand and Vietnam, who are because of their smaller size, they are able to do something more faster and more efficiently than India can, and therefore they would probably see a lot of benefit out of it. But having said that, while India is a federation of states and half the policies are in center and half policies are in the states, and you need real good caution to offer a carpet investment to come in. But India is still has very strong points for investment, whether India wants it, does not want it, will flow into India. And those two are, one, India has a lot of talent, labor, technology, which would help action to happen, if not at the size as China do, but 90%, 95% of the countries. Secondly, India also has a huge market, and with this also having distrust on China, would like to promote its own manufacturing. We have already heard Prime Minister saying that we need to be self. And if it starts pushing manufacturing for its consumption, it is, you produce here and can sell it here, get both supply chain side as well as the demand side in India. So I would gut feel estimate is that India would certainly get much more investment than we have done in before.
Rajiv, taking from what Akhil said, what would be one or two big things that should be looked at by us or by the government or the authorities to really make a big impact, which helps the country in future? And given wherever we are, where the world is, what would you suggest will make?
I would back a little bit and just see what is India's problem. One, of course, currently is COVID. So is the world's. But India's biggest problem is we have to build huge amounts of infrastructure. Now, to build that infrastructure, we need long-term finance. We don't have any institute long-term finance available. It used to be there. The DBIs, IFCIs of this world. Now they all become commercial banks or otherwise gone. So here's an idea and so a couple of more things. So we have this migrant labor problem. Now, if we were not building only factories around Delhi or Mumbai or Pune, and we had actually developed the backward areas with infrastructure, we'd have this migrant problem, etc., etc. Now, to cut short, I think we're running out of time, and there's a board meeting of young Akhil soon. So I'll quickly just tell you quick 3 points. One, we have, last estimates were $1 trillion illegally of Indian money lying outside India. See, we can take World Bank, etc. Get all that. Let's now today we bring that $1 trillion up into India. We go to jail. Why? All we have to do is announce that please bring the $1 trillion in, or what you have. No questions will be asked. You'll be immune from all laws. Number one. Number two, when the money hits here, 15% will be deducted as tax. That is $150 billion on the table, on the button. 30%, whoever brings the money in, keeps it, which will go into investment, more factories, whatever. In Akhil's friends' cases, jewelry, etc., etc. The balance 50% must compulsorily be invested, not because my size is like that, but in a thing I nomenclatured elephant bonds, which is 30-year money. Government of India will have 30-year money of $500 million approximately. You level that 6 times. You're looking at $3 trillion. Plus, remember the $150 billion. Now you have long-term money. You build your projects. You last I did a back of the envelope calculation, America is given 12% of the GDP for largest for COVID. Other countries are giving 12, 16, 14. Singapore is given 9%. What is India given? 0.08. Now, if we give $285 billion, which is roughly 10% of our GDP, we would have solved this COVID problem also somewhat. And economy would have risen, and employment would have happened. And now you will ask, Arey bhai, these rich fellows, they conned the system all these years. Now you're forgiving them. No, 15% we are charging them, plus take a net present value, and Akhil back me up, net present value of 30 years of money. You're looking at roughly 263, 264% penalty. Great tax. And here there is no, I mean, you lose nothing. Okay, you lose probably some of your votes, and I lightly put it. Modi Sahab said 15 lakhs will come to our banks. He couldn't get it. He also said, Achhe din aayenge. He didn't say when, luckily. So this is a solution. Maybe we can get one. If we do this, it solves a very large part of the problem, I think.
I think that's a very I'm sure several people who would be listening to this should be thinking and taking this discussion forward. Now we are left with about 10 minutes. So if you will permit, I'll kind of pick up some of the questions which have come from the audience, from the attendees. The first one they've requested to address to Akhil. I think, do you anticipate majority of SMEs and MSMEs burning out and unable to take the pressure? Or do you think they will find their feet, but with a time lag?
So it's a very, very valid question, because, when you were asking this question as to what should government do, besides the liquidity issue, we need money. And I completely agree with Rajiv that, we need lots of cash now, whether that 1 trillion from abroad can be brought back, or in my mind, I was thinking of, raising the fiscal deficit to increase and print more money. But the second point which was there in my mind is, how do you protect this MSME and SME? And therefore, money becomes even more important, because now after 6 weeks, 7 weeks, or 8 weeks, if lockdown is extended or is partial opening for next 1 month, or there is another round of lockdown, when people are going back to business, there will be zero liquidity. If it's almost like for MSME and SME, it's almost like starting a business from scratch. So I'm sure government is working on it. Government did not want to announce it in one go. We are, of course, far off from what is required to revive the economy in terms of government support. And the next round of support, I'm sure, will be for MSME and SME cluster. If it does not happen, there would be a large percentage of people will not be able to take it forward, and there would be far bigger consequences. So since there would be far bigger consequences, my hope is that this sector will be taken care of, but it is very fragile at the moment.
Right. Rajiv, there's a question for you. Sushil Sharda is asking, and he's talking about small contractors. There is no work now. These small contractors don't have work. And he's saying they have paid income tax, GST while they were working. They pay this thing. Now their capital is also trapped. So now not only do they have no work, but their capital is trapped. And they can't ask anyone for help, nor can they ask help from government. So is it, in this situation, they're not even able to give salary to the employees. So what is basically more like a ethics question. And if you don't have money to pay salary, or you're in the situation, what would you tell them? It could be Rajiv, it could be Akhil, anyone.
Well, that's a fact what he's saying, and the only solution that I see is government has to step in here. For example, if Mr. Sharda's company or his friend's company has a total expense base of 1 crore every month, suppose the government was to say, look, my friend, I'm giving you 12 months money. Here is 12 crores at 1% interest. You run your business and pay it back. I did a calculation back of the envelope again. It's roughly 65,000 crores is all it would cost the government. It'll have to pay the banks 6-7%. But 1% pay, anybody would borrow and get their story running. Also, if the government was to write off all of this, it's roughly about 2 lakh crores. If you turn that into dollars, you're talking of nothing. So that is one fell swoop decision if they can take. America has done that, by the way. France has done that. Italy has done that. Singapore has done that. Singapore is written off for 12 months. They've written off all property tax. For 12 months, they've written off rentals. Singapore is paying the landlord's rentals. And if you look at, I can do a comparison and send it to you guys for whatever it's worth. This is what the other countries are doing. We need to do that ASAP. I don't know what we are waiting for. We don't have any other solution.
So, Akhil, what would you say? I mean, if you were to take this thing forward, would you suggest that government goes for financing this kind of money? And what would your recommendation be here? And somebody's also added on, let me just add on, somebody's also saying banks have liquidity. I mean, they're not ready to finance many of these small businesses. So how would you add on to this?
Yeah, so there is no other option but government coming up with a SME, MSE package sooner than later. Frankly, meanwhile, for organizations like LNL or KPMG or many other such big organizations, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months lockdown, probably, we can take care of and pay our people. But MSME sector, May salary will be a very, very difficult thing. If your revenue is zero, there is, how do you pay? Frankly, what I have personally suggested to many people who are in such a state is to say, make your employee almost like your partner. If you throw them out, they're gone forever and they are in trouble. But if you kind of, maybe revise the cash flow, agree with them that, once it is back, you will take care of it. That's probably the solution. But long term, that's only for a month or two. Long term, there has to be, package from the government. Now, banks have liquidity, and that liquidity today may be 1 lakh crore or something. That may not be enough to take care of MSME. That money would still be required for large corporation. Large corporation will also be requiring money. It's not that large corporations are not suffering. They are suffering, but they are little more resilient and they are able to take for a month. Imagine if the lockdown goes for 6 months. Even large organization will be into the same situation. So that money will also be required, but you require a package, not only loan. Bank can give you loan. Bank can't give you free money. The government package has to come to support MSME sector. I don't think there is any other option.
Akhil, just to add to that, there is a Reserve Bank of India stumbling block. Banks may have money, but they can't lend to a company where the valuation is next to nothing.
Right.
So one solution is you take a valuation pre-COVID. Based on that, the banks can lend. I mean, there are a number of other solutions that can work because eventually the economy will come back. That's our hope. And if we don't take these actions and if we do all these actions, very good chance it will come back and they'll be able to pay back, etc., etc. So that they will do a pre-COVID valuation.
And I strongly hope it may not be next couple of quarters. From third quarter of this year or fourth quarter from this year, we will start bouncing back. And our long-term story, hopefully, is still very, very strong.
Great. Both of you, request you to give your closing statements and what would you see the future like? What do you see the future like? Especially for the millennials who are in large number on this attendee list.
A starts or R starts?
Anyone, Rajiv, you can go first.
Okay, I'll start.
Or Akhil wants to, I think Akhil has Akhil wants to leave.
Very quickly.
I think Rajiv would like to close
I think the millennials need to think positive. I know you guys are used to bean bags and those kind of good things. And I respect you all for your ways of thinking, but that's life. My three, like they say, the 2 Anna points. One, please make sure in these markets to think positive. Please do not trust the WhatsApp university. Please question solutions. I'll give you one quick example to establish my case. A lot of the soothsayers, I'm not running anybody down, are saying, niricha ho jao. You want to be happy? Don't have a desire. I question it. Not having a desire is also a desire. So if you look at it on all of these issues, you will see that there is always something that you need to understand rather than just follow the tide. One. Two, one lesson I want to give each, though I'm not someone who's a great lesson teacher, please, before you sleep every night, ask yourself, what have you learned today? If you've learned nothing, unique. Learned unique. Go and pick up a dictionary and learn a new word. Third, please wear a mask 24/7, even when you're alone at home. Yes, I know it won't help COVID, but it'll stop you from eating and drinking too much.
All right, Akhil, before you sign off.
Yeah, so from personal perspective, I would say the same thing, that please stay safe, because it's not over yet. This is not a war which we can win on individual basis. This is a typical war which we will either win as one team or we will lose as one team. It's not yet over. We have a population of 135 crore. If we open it up and 2 crore, 3 crore people get it, our infrastructure will not be able to handle it, and we would collapse. So first thing is, we have to fight this war and get out of it, whether it takes next 1 month or 3 months or 6 months. Carefulness will be required for next 6 months to 1 year before actually we get vaccine, and then it becomes a normal disease. But from the business and future perspective, this is the time when protection and preservation is required. We will soon get into a phase where the value creation will be done in a very, very different manner, and millennials are expert on that. And then some point of time, we will realize the value of that, and we'll be back. We'll be a stronger country, will be a better economy. With that hope, I look at the future.
Great. Thank you so much. I'd like to...
Before we sign off, sir, with your permission, may I request the audience to send the negatives of my concept to Professor Davinder Singh. I'd love to hear the negatives. Punch as many holes as you can. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Rajiv. Thank you, Akhil, for taking time out and being on this conversation. And thank you all the attendees for being there. And sorry we couldn't take all the questions, but thank you so much for being here, and very, very pertinent points taken out. Please remain safe and use mask, and take care and be positive. Thank you so much.